Holding two pieces of metal at the proper angle to each other for tack welding can be just about impossible by yourself. BESSEY's magnetic squares can be an extra set of hands whenever you need them. BESSEY magnetic squares are essentially a magnet that's sandwiched between two metal plates that have the angles machined into them. The plates extend beyond the magnet by varying amount. This helps to ensure that they sit flat on a flat surface and also sit firmly on a curved surface like a piece of tubing. The magnets have holes in one or more corners, so you can join two or more magnets for special applications. Most also have a center hole through the magnet that you can use for hanging the magnets on a hook. Even the basic magnetic squares make forming 90-degree or 45-degree corners simple and very accurate. The BDMS-1 is kind of the big boy on this magnetic squares block, and it's called the Big Daddy for a reason. At first I thought this handle on the Big Daddy was there for show, but then I tried breaking 100 pounds of magnetic force free from my metal table. It turns out that handle's there for a reason. You can also use this handle to essentially jack the Big Daddy up to reduce the magnetic force and make it easier to pull off. As you might suspect, and I should have, the magnet inside the Big Daddy is large. It's now very clear to me that the Big Daddy is for big jobs. The CMS-1 is also called chunky because it has a lot of the Big Daddy properties but in a smaller package. Chunky also has 100 pounds of magnetic force and uses a handle to help jack it free of the surface. The double magnetic square is exactly what the name suggests. It is in fact two squares joined at one pivot point, and that gives you some interesting capabilities. You can set the magnetic square for virtually any angle that you want. But there's another use that I think is even more important. This bracket is actually 88 degrees, and I need to make 11 of them. Using this bracket as a gauge, I set it in the double magnetic square, and I can put two plates on the bottom and then weld them together. That'll maintain this angle, and I can make as many of these brackets as I need. The multi-angle magnetic square is kind of the jack of all trades. It has cuts on the sides to give you 30, 45, 60, 75, and 90 degree angles. The arrowhead magnetic square also has some hidden capabilities. It has the two 45-degree angles on the top. Set it on one, you get a 90. But you can do something else with this little cutout in the corner. Let's say you need to install some 45-degree pieces near the edge of a square table. Set the arrowhead magnet over the edge, and you're all ready to go. I realize the Big Daddy's been hanging around in the background. I've just been building up some strength to get it off of the table. The ground clamp magnets aren't square, but they can be a lifesaver in some situations. Both of them have 2-inch round magnets, but the difference is in this center plunger. The MGC-1 has a brass plunger and can handle up to 250 amps of welding power. The MGC-2 has a copper plunger and can handle up to 800 welding amps. The plungers are spring-loaded, so when the clamp pulls it down, they maintain solid contact with the surface. You do have to make a bare metal spot for the plunger to make contact, but that's a lot easier to fix than welding on a bolt or stud for your grounding clamp. One of the things I really like about the BESSEY magnetic squares is how they can simplify fitting up a joint. When fitting one piece to another, we too often come back and check our progress by hand. But with the magnetic squares, we can put the piece back in the magnet and be sure that the angle's perfect when we check our progress. Then we can tack the piece in place and be sure of a perfect fit when we weld it up. While using the BESSEY squares is very straightforward, we did get a valuable tip right from BESSEY. Just about anything can be affected by the heat generated by welding. BESSEY advises using the square to get the piece set up and tacked in place, and then remove the magnet before doing the finish welding. In most cases, you'd have to remove the magnet for access anyway, but this is a good point to remember. If you do much fabrication, having an extra set of hands in the shop is always handy. The BESSEY magnetic squares are very accurate and they work very cheap.